Hello and welcome to the latest in Real Stories, our bite-sized format of Do More with Less. We twin these, our monthly Do More with Less interviews with marketing leaders with shorter, punchier sessions that highlight on-the-ground stories of individuals figuring out how to work to the Do More with Less instruction and direction. So today, I'm very, very excited to be talking to Thrive CMO Jessica Leyshon. From software giant Sage only 4 months ago, where I think you were for 8 years. Sage, for those who don't know, is a big market leader in cloud software, business management solutions, supporting, I think, millions, of small and medium-sized businesses globally with over 11,000 colleagues. You've gone to Thrive, which is, having checked you guys out, a really superbly impressive looking learning and knowledge management platform with some brilliant clients, actually, some brilliant big clients, and a Sunday Times top 50 fastest growing tech company, always on a list, but only with 160 colleagues. Now, first CMO job. So Jessica, let's start. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I realised as you said that I've worn the wrong top. So Sage is obviously very known for its green, and I'm wearing green and no longer at Sage. I should have worn a Thrive black t-shirt today, but great to chat to you today. I'm looking forward to getting stuck in.
Really big move from one of our genuine B2B giants here, 11,000 colleagues working with some superstar names, to being first-time CMO, a really small but fast-growing company. How's the adjustment been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a steep learning curve, but I've loved it. It was very intentional. I wanted to go from a big company to a smaller one. I was very interested to see what startup, scale-up life is like, particularly on the marketing side.
Is it your first small scale-up?
Actually, my first scale-up was at a company just before Sage. Then we got acquired by Sage. So I was very lucky in that I joined a kind of scale up, about 200 strong people, got the experience of working in a scale up in marketing. And then we were acquired by Sage. And then my role kind of grew and evolved over that time. So I got to live lots of different lives at Sage. And I got the full kind of journey from kind of scale up to big enterprise. So second time at a scale up, but very different and loving it. 4 months in. It's been really exciting.
4 months goes so quick. I mean, anything goes quickly in a scale-up. I've been in scale-ups now for 10 years or so, and I don't know if I would. Maybe I'd age quickly if I went to a corporate, but I feel internally, my internal voice says stay with scale-ups. They keep you young. But what's the actual genuine adjustment? Like, what have the challenges been? Because I guess at Sage, you must have been resourced to the hilt, always. The budgets, the time, the space, I guess, like, how does it work with Thrive? Are you on suddenly a restricted timeline budget? Everything's moving quicker. Are you working to it?
Yeah, it's all of the things you would expect, and all the things I kind of hoped for, I guess, in a way. In ways where I feel like I'm learning more, it's kind of great, and then sometimes it's a steeper learning curve. So really, I think the main thing really with a scale up is exactly what you'd expect. You've got smaller teams, smaller budgets, but bigger ambition. A lot more to do in a smaller kind of.
You can get things done quicker as well, can't you?
Exactly, and that's what I was looking for. Really, I think in big enterprise companies, I learned so much, but it was intentional to go to a scale up. I wanted something where I could influence more, have a kind of a larger stake in things. In conversations, and it's exactly what I expected. And I think for anybody who's kind of considering it, I would definitely recommend, trying it out. I think both ways, whether you're working in a scale up and you want to try a large company, and then if you're in a large company, you want to try a scale up, because I've learned so much from both. And in a way, people see them as opposite. I don't always see that as the case, but if you kind of learn how to do things and what works well in both, then you've kind of double armed yourself, right, in a world of marketing, particularly in today's age in tech where things are moving so quickly. There's no one right playbook for doing things.
You've gone from Guardian journalist, you went to spend 3 years at the Treasury, doing a role I'm sure you can tell us a little bit about. Then you've been back into PR and you were at Sage, and you've gone from small to big. You've you've gone the whole hog and almost experienced everything there is to taste in British commerce.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you say that, because I think at this point in my career, I can look back and I can lie and say it's all intentional.
Yeah, of course.
Well
done.
My
tick, tick, tick.
It definitely wasn't at the start. And, it's actually the reason why I took this role at Thrive was because I just finished an MBA, and I went on an MBA course, which was about intentional, proactive career management. And it was all about, have you taken jobs just because of what's come up and what's next in the past? And I thought, yeah, I have. That's me. I've kind of thought that sounds good. I'll try that. Or someone's said this role would suit me. Let's try that. And at the end of that workshop, I came out with it and I kind of locked myself in a room, metaphorically, I guess. This room doesn't have a lock, but I sat here and I wrote down exactly what I wanted. I wanted to work in a mid-size scale-up, B2B tech, ideally HR tech, strong focus on women in leadership and a great culture. And I kind of wrote that down and I was like, that's what I'm going after next. But yeah, you're right. I've tried a whole range of different things. And actually, in terms of being in B2B marketing, I feel like it's set me in really good stead, having firstly that journalist background. So I know what good writing looks like. It's really helped with PR, but also working agency side. So that's really been useful managing agencies in my career since, knowing what it's like the other side and how agencies manage clients. So yeah, all might make sense now. But, as I went, it wasn't always as intentional as I'd like to pretend now.
Do you know what? It's funny because I jumped around a lot in early stages of my career, and that used to stand against me in CV recruitment interview land. And I used to try and spin it and say, look, do you know what? I feel like I've gathered experiences and put myself together as some kind of, not an all-rounder, but somebody that can synthesize different experiences and aims and goals. And I think that's really I think that's as valuable as somebody who's done, 10 years of the same thing is how I used to put it. Now, I think it's far more, I think just certainly in an era of trying to do more with less and trying to figure out what new skill set that requires. I think people who have experienced different environments and understood what environment they're looking for rather than what job or role they're looking for are super, super valuable. I think that if you can turn yourself from a marketer to a go-to-marketer or from a marketer to a business person that understands absolutely every need and motivation across the business, I think probably you present yourself as a solution, don't you?
I agree. And I think also when you've worked in the same sector, sometimes you become blind to things outside the sector. Often people who have a different perspective obviously have some of the best and most different ideas.
Yeah.
Saying that, I was kind of just thinking, it makes me laugh sometimes that my experience of a treasury is like a perfect example. If I ever have like an interview and I talk about, a time where I've been under pressure, I tend to talk about being head of digital at the UK Treasury, my team live tweeting budgets, publishing the budget documents, which is obviously market sensitive, and then briefing ministers after budget around what are these journalists going to ask on broadcast TV, what are the answers, what are you going to say? And actually at that time, bizarrely, it didn't feel that stressful. It just felt very exciting. But now I look back and I think, oh, wow, that sounds stressful. So it's a brilliant case in point when I'm talking about managing like a high pressured situation, because you can't really get more high pressured than that in the kind of, professional services world. Obviously, if you're a doctor and you're saving lives, it's very different. But it's a really interesting example to think about, what I take from that. It also gives me perspective. Sometimes in marketing, we think that there's a bit of a crisis and there is, and sometimes we want to solve it. But actually, I'm not briefing ministers ahead of broadcast TV about what to say, and actually if that's okay.
Were you a financial journalist at The Guardian?
No, I was actually a social policy journalist. So I wrote about health and social care, which was really useful ahead of the spending review that I then worked on. So I remember going to interview policy officials to write up what are some of the announcements and what are we announcing, because I was big on, hey, look, if we pull it in like casual terms so that people can understand, actually these messages are going to resonate better. And an article I wrote was produced word for word on BBC News. So it was a really interesting case in point to say to policy officials. But I don't think they were used as somebody who was so much of a geek about the healthcare reforms at the time. So I was really grilling them. What does this mean? And what does this, what does this mean for people who are using services? And again, that really helped me in my marketing career since, really trying to distill key messages.
I think there's something about having something important to say. And so tell me about you and my colleague were, the reason we got in touch was because you were interested, you had some interest and research that you'd done about personal branding in B2B.
Yeah. So I could actually talk about this till cows come home. It's such an interesting topic. And I think it's so top of mind for marketers at the moment, particularly with AI. So ChatGPT, you can write posts really easily. People are thinking about how they stand out. So as part of my MBA, I ran some research with B2B marketing leaders about personal branding, because I feel the same. I feel like I should be doing it a lot more, but actually it makes me feel a little bit icky, and I want to make sure it comes across in the right way. And I was just thinking about it a lot because, again, in marketing, we're so good at marketing products and services, but when it comes to ourselves, we think, oh no, I don't want to do that. And actually the research, it was only a sample size of 60, but it was 60 B2B marketing leaders. So
that's a big sample. That's a big sample for Qual, right? I mean,
yeah. And actually, the thing that stood out the most to me was only 2% say they have an intentional goal or objective or focus with personal branding. So lots of people are doing personal branding for impression management and not because they're looking to achieve some sort of goals. They really care about what their peers think, and they're not necessarily thinking, here's what I want to achieve. When we set out, these are, like in the research, these are different objectives. Which ones, do you want to achieve through personal branding? It was the first time that people had thought about it.
What does that mean? What's achieving personal? So I understand impression management. I don't think I have a specific goal with a view to personal branding other than to never be unemployed again, understand the power of and exploit the power of a network, and get my voice out there because I think I've got things to say. So what do you mean by personal branding being a goal in itself?
Yeah, so I set out in the survey, what objectives do you want to hit? And advancing my career was one objective.
Right.
Building my network was another objective. Expressing my identity and lived experience was another objective.
Yeah.
And there was one or two others. I think one was around like finding out what other people want to say and listening online. And when people saw that list, they're like, oh yeah, I actually do that. But when I asked them, what do you want to achieve? Do you know what you want to achieve? So for example, in marketing, like a smart objective for personal branding might be, I want to grow my LinkedIn followers from 2,000 to 5,000 by 2026 in order to build my network. So in 2026, I can get X role. And actually, people weren't thinking like that. People were just posting on LinkedIn or doing these types of things without...
Sometimes just because they feel they have to. They've heard that they've got to post every day or every week. And
And the reasons I kind of set out, why are you doing it? So if you are thinking about personal branding, just how you would have an approach for your marketing campaigns and activity with clear objectives to set out in the same way. So firstly, F, like a focus or an objective. What is it you're trying to achieve? Like, what is the smart objective that you want? Secondly, intended audience. Who is your intended audience as opposed to your network? Is it your boss? You want to impress your boss and get promoted? Is it CEOs in B2B SaaS because you want to get hired again? And then the R in terms of the FIRE framework stands for like resonating focus. So obviously an approach in marketing, like what is a single thing you want to be known for? Like, can others articulate it? And then the E in terms of FIRE framework was enablers. So what do I need to do to set out a good personal brand? And that's often what people think about when they think about their personal brand. So am I using emojis in LinkedIn? Am I using these different formats? So people were looking at the enablers. What are the things that make me have a good personal brand without thinking about what is the objective I'm trying to achieve and what audience am I trying to reach? And I just thought that was fascinating from a marketing perspective, because can you imagine building a marketing plan and strategy but not setting out your objectives or audience at the start?
I've seen it done, but it doesn't go down very well.
Exactly.
Tell me this. Let's start from the beginning then. Is LinkedIn really what we're looking at when we think about B2B marketing, personal brand? Is that it? Is that the channel?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what my research looked at as well. Personal branding is so much more than that. It's actually how you show up in meetings. It might be how you present yourself at events. It could be as much as how you dress. But actually, people see personal branding is, should I post on LinkedIn? And of course, just in the last year with ChatGPT, don't know about you, I can see a mile off who's used ChatGPT when and where, and it's kind of evened out the playing field. So great, everyone can post and sound professional, but actually how do you stand out for that? And that's the real thing that I think marketers are thinking about, particularly with AI and, you know, doing more with less and teams getting smaller and people having to prove themselves more and show up and what makes them human and what makes them different from AI.
I was going to say, so personal brand to me is everything from how do you respond when somebody much younger than you comes to you for some kind of guidance, help, or just a coffee to ask about their career. How do you think about yourself when you are projecting your own, whatever personal values you have, whether you articulate them or not in work? So in terms of things like fairness, equality, commitment to work, you know, the way you treat people, we've narrowed it down. Typical of B2B marketers, we seem to have boiled it down to the cabbage of LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think so.
And should I post and what should I post and everything else. I've seen some horror stories in terms of again, like most people, I don't think I'm special, but the idea of calling something a personal brand as opposed to just wanting to talk and wanting to talk with and wanting to hear from and listen and express views is a bit gross. But I've also seen some real weird left turns that I consider bad moves. I've got an old colleague from a company I worked for many years ago who lives in the States and runs her own company, and she's absolutely brilliant. She's super dynamic, always was, really smart, really like top operator, but also incredible human being. And earlier this year, she announced on LinkedIn, I am going to run an experiment and get ChatGPT to run all of my posts every day for the next 30 days to measure engagement. And I was like, why would you do that? Like, why would you knowingly, like, especially when you're not one of those that worries about what to say or you don't need it. Like, this is where you get to be you and say what you want. That's how we keep LinkedIn valuable. Why would you literally admit and accept that you're giving it all up to something like ChatGPT? So do we read it or do we not? Because we know it's not you. And I posted, I said, why would you do that? What on earth are we doing that you're almost, that's like literally, and she said, wow, you're coming in hot. So I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get angry, but I was fiercely, you know, we notice when somebody's using AI to write their posts and it's kind of slightly soulless and kind of, there's all these clues. But she was, so there's all sorts of weird stuff going on LinkedIn at the moment.
Yeah, what was the outcome? I'd be really interested because it wouldn't surprise me if her engagement could have possibly even gone up. And I think that's the interesting thing, right?
She did publish the results and they were a mixed bag of wins and losses. But honestly, for 30 days, I almost habitually and kind of, again, disgustingly just went to find her to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. It was like, to me, it was just like everything you could imagine, from a ChatGPT. Like, here is what I think of me. Here are some photos. Here's a bit about my life. And it was just like, they were almost formulaic.
Yeah. And do you know what, though, is quite scary? I posted something on LinkedIn last week and I found myself writing in a style of ChatGPT. I did that hook at the start where you know, if you see people on, again, LinkedIn, but elsewhere, and you think you don't talk like that, there's a hook at the start and then they go to their post. I did that organically just because I guess osmosis. I'd seen everybody else doing it. That felt like best practice. And I caught it afterwards and I thought, I'm not going to go back and change it. But it's so interesting with the world of work and marketing right now. You know, what is AI generated? What becomes the norm? What is acceptable? And actually, how do people build credibility and connection? And not just with personal branding, but in marketing generally, right? You know, we use AI a lot at Thrive, and I have done in previous roles too. And I see others trying to experiment it. We like to free up time as much as possible. Also, how do you build credibility? And if you think of, I think it's OpenAI who are recruiting for a content writer. I saw it for Fix.ai as well. So hugely successful, fast-growing UK AI company. They're also looking for a head of content role, which they're paying extortionate a really good salary too, which is quite unheard of in content marketing, because they want someone who sounds human. And what does that tell us in the age of AI about connection and credibility?
Yeah, it's scary. It is scary. It's, there's all sorts of reasons to be super positive about AI and the emergence of it, the accessibility of it, the adoption of it. But there are things that just naturally feel, I mean, I've tried very, very hard to be as me as possible, but I guess that even that's changing your behavior in order to react to something. What the marketers need to do, finally, if they're trying to figure out how to survive AI, survive an economy that is up and down and being led by people who are, reacting to, let's just say, a ton of different stimuli and prompts, and and businesses trying to do more with less. What should people be thinking about in terms of what personal brand is as a tool?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, and definitely not an expert, I think if I had the answer, I'd be quite rich. I think there's two things. It's firstly just thinking about your objective. My research showed people just don't really know what they're looking to do. If you just want to post from time to time on LinkedIn or get yourself out there, fine. But you think, okay, my next career move wants to be X, so I'm going to really focus on a bit of a marketing plan for myself to get there. I would definitely recommend that. It's just having a clear idea of what your objective is. And number two, just be yourself. It sounds really cheesy, but there is a lot of pressure to use AI and to talk about things which is going to get attention. And sometimes if you're not being yourself, people feel that and they notice that.
Do you know what? Even before AI, there was a pressure to think, talk, and act like a B2B marketer rather than just be yourself. And again, I think that's a weapon. If you can cut through by genuinely making people feel like you're you rather than
exactly
an optimizing, passionate, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
People can kind of smell fakeness or insincerity away, because we're all human. We're marketing to humans. I guess that at the moment anyway. Might change in the future.
Jessica Leyshon, thank you so much for the time. Thanks for joining us. I've genuinely loved our conversation. Could have gone on for ages. And come back at some point and we'll talk again.